Welcome to Presence. I'm Ravi Tangri, your co-host, and joining me is Holly Duckworth, who is beaming at us from Denver. How are you, Holly?
Hello from the Mile High City, Ravi. Happy Friday.
And what we're going to be getting into today, this is, we're continuing our exploration of David Richo's book. And what we want to get into now, the 5 things we can't change and the happiness we find by embracing them. And what we're getting into now is the first of 3 shows about how do you get to yes? How do you really step into saying yes to life? Because a lot of times what I've found is we've learned to say no to a lot of life. So how do we start to become a yes? That's what we're going to explore today. How do we shift away from all the no, I can't do this, I can't sustain this, I'm not good enough, to open ourselves to what could be a life of yes. And just a reminder, you can download all of our shows on iTunes. Make sure just search for Holly Duckworth or Ravi Tangri on iTunes, and you can access them, of course, all the archive on YouTube. We're going to be getting our website up pretty soon on the present show, and that'll be another easy way that you can track these down. So, Holly, we are today's show, as I said, we're getting into how do you become a yes? And I think a lot of our world, a lot of our lives is almost counter to this.
Well, Ravi, now would be a great time to just add that we did have a big giant yes as we were filming the show, and that David Richo agreed to do a show with me. So if you are watching that show's on iTunes, we're leaving it as a special show number 10, an interview with him. And so how to become a yes, what I really love about these next 3 shows and the second half of his book is that recognizing that we have to stretch our potential to trust. And trust beyond the ego, because so often it is that ego voice that becomes the no. And in doing my own personal work recently, I've been playing with that word ego. And as you know, I love acronyms. So ego for us was expanding God's opportunity, or if God doesn't land well for you listeners, expanding the goodness opportunity. That so often we create our own resistance in the no. And yet when we listen to the warnings or listen to that little ego voice, it gives us an opportunity to also step into an expanded goodness opportunity with us. I went on a meditative walk this morning before the show, and I was, of course, watching the leaves fall. And I came to a really giant reminder that, that third leaf up on the second branch, it doesn't have the opportunity to say, yes, I'm going to turn yellow, or no, I'm not going to turn yellow. And nature is such a beautiful place for us to reflect and to learn and to recognize that the universe is always saying yes and always supporting us. I might grab it here in a second. I have a great quote from another magazine that, how would our life be different if we saw little angels or little cheerleaders around us saying yes, yes, yes all the time? Because that's what I believe the world is saying to us, and it's only our own inner ego voice that's sometimes saying no, no, no.
Well, and there's one line that Richo has in his book that really jumped out at me is that fear is a no to what is. And
I got that in a box here too in my book.
That a lot of times we get into fear because I think people are stuck on the way we think life should be. And it's not, and we're not saying what is here, right? People are focused on the things that they don't have, on the things that aren't working out, and yet there's so much that is.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring it on the show, but it fits so well here. As you know, tomorrow's my 40th birthday, and I'm in a ginormous, wonderful transformation place to do the next line that I wanted to highlight, which is becoming comfortable with being ourselves right now. Yeah. If you are a coffee barista, if you are a stay-at-home mom, if you are executive or CEO of a major company, no matter where you are, we're all called in this energy right now to stand in the truth of who we are and start to think about our, we're all volunteering on some path, whether we're, any level of home executive or, executive in the C-suite, that it's voluntarily saying yes. And are you saying yes to the things that nourish you and the love and help you become your highest and best self right now?
Well, the interesting thing is, with the work that you and I do, have had the chance to get to know people in all different places in an organization, from the C-suite to the front line. And the thing is, a lot of people look at people who are in supposedly accomplished places, right? Who are executives or this, and they think, oh, they've got it all together. They've got all, and yet I've had the chance to talk to some, and some of them are carrying the same insecurities. It's just me. I've got all this. I don't know all the answers. And yet people look at them and think, oh, they've got it all together.
One of my first experiences with a guru teacher here in Denver, we were having breakfast and I said, do you know who you are? Like, you're this big name. And the gentleman so graciously said to me, would you be willing to perhaps take me off that pedestal? Because you and I are soul friends, and we're doing the same thing in this life. And we need to examine those times that we're putting someone else on a pedestal and taking ourselves off.
Yeah.
And that in that conversation was his invitation to me to put myself on that same pedestal, or on the same grassy knoll, or the same 12th floor of the building that he was in, because we're all living and learning and growing together. I loved this other part about there's a spark and a vitality in us, a bonfire that is not extinguished by any tragedy. Something within us is an urge toward wholeness, towards passion, to creating this desire to start over, to give into something new and express change. And it's kind of funny because I'm pretty sure that it will look like a bonfire on a birthday cake of 40 candles. But what is that bonfire expressing within you? And if that bonfire isn't expressing in you right now, how to become a yes might be taking a little baby step toward that. And we're going to give some more tips on that in the show. But how to become a yes is sometimes just that littlest thing to something new. It doesn't have to be these great leaps. I think sometimes people see you and I in our entrepreneurial world and they're like, oh, we could never do that. And yeah, there was a day that we did quit our day job and move to this, but there was hundreds of days before that we might have been doing 2 or 3 jobs or 2 or 3 different experiences in order to put food on the table and get us to this particular yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Everyone has come one step at a time into this, right? And everyone was at similar places to start with, and that's what you forget. And it is just that one step at a time. So some of the things for me is we forget how far we've come. How often do you take a look back at look back 10 years, 20 years, where you were, and then imagine how you would have looked at yourself today, right?
We did not plan this. I got to show you this thing on my desk. Remember how far you've come, not just how far you have to go. You are not where you want to be, but neither are you where you used to be.
Yeah.
So reflecting on the yeses that we said, maybe it's yes to parenthood, or yes to a new car, or yes to that divine life partner, or yes to the little project that gave you the opportunity to have the bigger project, or get your boss's eyes on you. That's my work right now is, you're not where you used to be. And whether we like it or not, 2017, 18, 19, 20 is coming too. And we have an opportunity to think now about where do we want to be when those things happen. Exactly.
So let's move into some of the concepts that we want to dive into. Like what does yes to life mean, Holly?
Well, you asked this question on our special live show that you did this week. We're starting to think about doing live meetups in the various cities we both live in, and certainly as we travel. So we invited a group of people to ask this question, say yes to life. And I think for me, a yes to life is being myself to a full. I've been playing with that word beautiful. Be you to a full.
I love it.
Yeah, be you to a full. And so saying yes to life is being you to a full. Even when that person comes to you and says, that'll never work. Oh my gosh, that, they're those dream stealers in our life that, how can you continue to say that yes and yes and surround yourself with those cheerleaders or cheer angels that move you to the yes of what it is that you want, whether that's a little goal, like my goal, I talked about in my newsletter this week about doing a 14er. That was a yes to life. And I had lots of little cheer angels that came around to help that happen for me. So what about you? What's yes to life for you, Ravi?
I think yes to life is letting go of trying to control it and make it happen the way you think it should. It's say, okay, life, let's go. It's a gorgeous day. Let's go. How do I serve? Where do I serve? Where do I go? And that's a tough thing for us to do, I think, in our society, is to let go of control, because we think we're supposed to know where we're going to be now and then the next. But it's, okay, what's here right now? Let's be present. Get out of our heads, get out of the should be's, get out of the why didn't I's, and say, what's here? And let's say open to that. It may not be what you planned. It may not be any of that, but you're right here, right now. So what's here?
Page 107 in the book, Rico says, let go of thoughts and make room for the powers ready to come through you. Powers that come through you. As a person newly exploring their own soul-filled, spiritual, divine path, when I hear that, I'm like, what do you mean powers that come through me?
Mm-hmm.
What advice, what thoughts do you have on that, Ravi? Do you powers that come through you? How do you explain that to somebody new to this?
Well, for me, I believe that every one of us has a very unique gift. We have something that we bring into this world to share with others, to help others grow. And what we need to do is first of discover what that is. And so if you're talking about the powers to come through, I think we come into the world with powers. Every one of us, every person I've ever met has some sort of unique gift, ability, or knowing. And it's how do you use that to share with others to help yourself grow? And to let go of thoughts is a big thing, because that's where the ego comes in. So it's to say, okay, what's going on here today? How can I serve? It may not be what you expected, but what's happening? Who are the people here? It may not be the people I plan to be with, but what are they coming to say here? What have they come to teach me?
One of the examples that comes to me for this letting go of thoughts thing was this vision I had a few years ago of writing for an international magazine. Now, listeners are getting to know me the more we do shows. I grew up in a very blue-collar family in a little teeny tiny town just south of Portland, Oregon. I'm a first-generation college graduate, and I kept getting this vision, write for an international magazine. I'm like, I'm a girl who grew up in a trailer park. What do I have to say? And I blew it off three times. I blew off this very clear message, write for an international magazine. And finally, I kind of let go of my thoughts into it, and I said, okay, Spirit, if you want this to happen through me, to this point of powers coming through you, you're going to have to show me a little more clearly what you want. And I had a little message download, new editor at Science of Mind magazine. And I was like, yeah, so I've never read this magazine. I don't know what this magazine's about. Google it. So I go find this magazine. Okay, write the new editor. And here's her name, Diane. And I started doing a little more research. Well, there's a woman named Diane Bishop who's the editor there. And I'm like, okay, I still don't know how to do this. So I'm like, power greater than me, come through me and tell me what to do. And I sometimes I just take my hands and I put them on the keyboard and I let the words fall in. And by that power greater than me again, that crazy spirit, I just said, okay, what have I got to lose? If she says no, no big deal. I hit send on an email to her that says, I have this idea, crazy concept for a column, illuminating spirituality in business. she wrote me back in 24 hours. She loved it. We met face to face, and now I write this column in this magazine. But if I hadn't been willing to let that ego, that no go, I might still be sitting here going, what is mine to do each day? And, 6 times a year I write for this magazine. So is there some little voice, something yearning in you that you're now inviting yourself to step into? Because if I had known then it was going to be this big column in this thing, and now a show, I might not have done it, but it's just that one first step.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, there's another line from the book that I really like, that the yes is born of trust and it heals fear. And I find it really an interesting juxtaposition in that I help organizations and individuals build plans, build strategies, and so on. But for me, every time I've worked to make a business plan, something has happened that's, the plan's going this way, and suddenly something happens, an opportunity comes that takes me off this way. And it's like, okay, fine. Okay. It just has not worked for me. And so for me, it's been letting go of me trying to control my direction and saying, okay, which direction am I going? And there are times when I've worked to build business in a certain area, and I've done marketing that cannot get advertising, that cannot get results that were as bad as I got. And finally I get, okay, fine, this is not the right direction for me. I'm letting go. And like one time I got a call from this international pharmaceutical company out of Kansas, and who they knew they had to get me. And when I pushed the guy, when I met him, he could not remember where he heard of me. I have no clue how they heard of me. I get this phone call, and a week later I'm in Belgium working with the executive team. It's like, that was not in my plan. But, the moment I stopped trying to control it, just said, okay, let's go. Boom. It just started to flow in directions I could not have planned or imagined.
The quote, just let's read it again for the audience. Yes is born of trust and heals fear. So this week we would invite you, as you're doing your mindfulness practice, to think about that. Where are you experiencing fear? Where is the possibility that trust could heal that? And since I sort of made this a serious conversation, me, I always have to make things lighter too. I heard a great quote last week. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. So, we so often as spiritual people think, life is about sitting on a meditation pillow wherever it is. And yet I think being a spiritual person is about the truth will set you free and it will piss you off. We are both human and we are both being. And in both of these stories, Ravi and I share a little bit about sort of that human unsureness. And as we stepped into that truth, we healed a fear that's brought us to the next one little step of our life in both of those examples, for me writing and for you speaking.
And I think the thing is, here's a cautionary note. When we set a vision and we get excited about it, there's a real, I don't know when it happens, but there's a point where it can flip, and your passion for the vision can switch to a fear of not getting it. And remember, and so what happens, the picture changes. It changes from the vision to not having the vision, and infused with frustration. Remember, the way that we create is a clear picture infused with emotion. Doesn't matter what the picture is, doesn't matter what the emotion is. So the moment you start getting stressed about something not working out, you're not focused on your goal anymore. You're focused on the goal not happening. You're infusing it with the stress and the fear. And that's what you create, is more of the not happening. And so that's a real cautious a caution I have when we do set a vision and it's not working, to start looking at, okay, what's happening here? What is coming my way? Maybe, like in my case with the business, I was off in terms of what I was visioning. And I had to listen to the universe and say, okay, what's here?
So in this particular show, how to be a yes, am I understanding you correctly to say that it's not just the words yes, but that energy inside me needs to be excited about what's coming because I said yes?
And not just what's coming, but what is. It's a yes to what is, because it's, the other quote was, fear is a no to what is. So what that means is we're not accepting what's here. And often what's here may be a far greater gift than what we ever imagined in our goals. So the thing is, I would never advocate or recommend anyone doing a leap of faith like I've done in the business. I've spent years building my intuition that I trusted, but to find bite-sized chunks, like just another small example of where it felt like I was pushing water was I had to once, I remember very clearly this week, I had a report due for a client on Friday. And I could not get myself going on it. I kept pushing, stressing that I wasn't. And finally, Tuesday or Wednesday, I said, okay, something's going on. It's not flowing, right? What's happening right now that I need to say yes to is it's not working. And on Wednesday, they called and said, you know what, we can't make our meeting Friday. Can we reschedule for next week? Sure. Guess what? The next Monday, the report was done. Bing, bang, bong. I got it done in plenty of time for the meeting. But that week, something was telling me, and I wasn't trusting it. I was fearing not having showing up without the report. For me, that's a smaller thing. If meeting still went on, yeah, there would have been some sort of a little caca to deal with, but it's not something that's going to destroy your life or the business. So where's a bite-sized thing where you could play with it, right?
Yeah, on next week's show, we're going to talk about how to feel, how to be a yes to your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be something to think about this week as you're exploring, what do you feel about getting up in the morning? How do you feel about your drive to work? How do you feel about the experiences? As a licensed spiritual practitioner, one of the things that I know in my prayer and my meditation work is I'm always focused on the feeling nature of the affirmative prayers that I'm speaking, and that I declare and I know and I feel what is true for me. And any of you in our audience, you're certainly listening to us. You've heard a lot of other speakers and teachers and gurus. You know the difference when you go to a speaker who's delivering a message and it's like all clockwork and no feeling and it's great and they're not passionate about it and they're not excited about it, versus when you get into the feeling nature of things. So how are you going to say yes and become a yes with that feeling behind it of the passion, the excitement, the energy that will bring you into greater connection with this source, this power greater than yourself, and make things happen for yourself? Yeah.
So now we should probably, we've only got about 7 minutes left, should move into the tips. And one of the things for me is what I find is what keeps us from being in a yes of what's here is we're living in the illusion of what we think it should be, instead of living in where we are, or living in our vision. It's great to have a vision, but then you got to be able to let it go, right? And live the journey. The journey is the value, not the goal. And so think about, if you're hitting this place, what is it that you're trying to make happen? What are you trying to control? And then what small part of it could you be able to let go of that and just say, okay, what's happening here? What's the learning in here? What's the opportunity here? So I wouldn't say take a big leap and do it with everything. Do it bite-sized pieces. But if it's in a relationship, if you're looking for a relationship, instead of trying to meet someone, just sort of let it go and say, okay, let's see who the universe brings my way. And what's the learning in that? If it's about something that you're doing at work, in one project, if it's hard, what is it you're trying to make happen? Is there a way to step back and say, what's here? What other opportunities are possible?
Yeah, we wanted to share with listeners something we're calling the loving kindness practice, that loving yourself, loving what you give out into the world, loving what comes into you, and loving what comes out of you as a tip or a technique to start to become a yes to this greater possibility of life. And so we wanted to demonstrate that for you, really, as starting out with a breathing practice of just simply breathing in loving kindness, or breathing in light and breathing out light. How does that feel differently when you're having a stressful moment with the children? Can you just breathe in light and breathe out light? And using this technique as a way to recommit to loving kindness from the people in your life and the people that the things that you're giving out into the world. And as you practice that over the next couple of weeks, we'd also invite you to deepen that practice by inviting yourself to maybe breathe in that challenge. Feel this as a tool to tap into your feelings, and then breathe out loving kindness. So when that boss yells at you because the PowerPoint wasn't perfect, after you've practiced this for a while, can you bring in that negativity into yourself and almost become a loving kindness filter, that you release love, that you actually bring your body into the becoming, the practice of loving kindness. Bring in the stress of that kid whose grade maybe wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be. And then breathe out love toward them so that you become a filter for more and more love. Did I explain that right, Ravi? Does that feel good?
I mean, the thing I like about that is the way I think about it is, first of all, you anchor that feeling of light and love and kindness, right? Of that, whatever brings you joy. And then you bring in all these things that were disturbing you or challenging you, as you say. And it's almost like you let them have a bath in that and then breathe out that light and kindness. So it's like you're soaking all that, the stuff that's the caca stuff, in this bath of love and kindness, and then breathe out the love. So it's, instead of fighting against it, you're giving it all of this energy that shifts things. It actually changes things.
Yeah, we say sometimes you have to feel it to heal it. And we'll talk about that more again next week. That, having that courage to just break your heart open a little bit, or open your soul just a little bit and say, okay, this might not feel exactly the way I want it to feel, but with the power of your thoughts and your mind, you're able to breathe and choose a new beginning each and every breath.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So that's and the key is it doesn't have to take an hour or so. You can just take a couple of minutes to get away somewhere and to be able to do that, and it's amazing the difference it can make.
Yes. Well, we have a great show next week. We're going to be back with a fabulous show. We're going to call it Say Yes to Those Feelings. Yay to feelings, yes to feelings, both the good and the challenging. It's how can we be grateful for the light and the dark that life provides for us. We know it's a great big week out in the universe. Today we have the solar eclipse, and we have Mercury retrograde, and all kinds of goodness going on. So we hope this show today gave you some tips on how to breathe through all of those changes and start practicing with your feelings, so that next week we have some great material moving forward.
Start moving more into the yes. And remember, you can find us on iTunes, the podcast, and also on our Facebook pages. Send us some feedback. You can find all of our shows there, and on YouTube, the replays. So have an amazing Friday and weekend, an incredible birthday for you, Holly, and we will see you guys next week.
To the future, we say yes.
Yes.